So welcome to the Grand Rapids Label video blog series. This is a series dedicated to innovation discussions, specifically around the industrial durable label space, but also largely for organizations that are interested in learning and having discussions about various topics that are out in the marketplace. So today, we're really excited to have Les Brand, the CEO of Supply Chain Solutions, join us. I'll smile a little bit. Les, we were just chatting before the recording started about you don't have to look very far into the newspapers or Google or whatever your news source is to learn about the challenges of supply chain right now, whether it's ships off coasts in Los Angeles and Long Beach, or it's shortages of available trucking capacity, so on and so forth. So really excited to have you join the Grand Rapids Label video blog series today.
Great to be here, Bill. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, it is challenging out there right now. We kind of sum it up as a kind of a global Armageddon.
Global Armageddon. So what a fun topic to try and unpack here for about 15 minutes. So for the viewer, maybe you're a frequent viewer of our video blogs. Again, we keep it about innovation. We're going to talk state of the market, which is going to be fun to listen to. But we're also then going to, turn to what we want to talk about, right? If we're thinking about supply chain and its effect on my company or your company, whoever the listener's company, we'll talk about a couple of horizons, right? What to think about maybe 1 to 2 years out, and then a little further, what to think about maybe 5 years out. What kinds of conversations should, companies like Grand Rapids Label or others be having to make sure supply chain is an important contributor to the success of the organization. So I'll be quiet. Les, please, a few words about yourself, a few words about supply chain, and then solutions, and then we'll get going.
Well, this rolls right into my earlier meeting. I serve as very proud to serve as one of the business advisors for the GVSU Business School, and we've got that board is comprised of businesses around the region, all senior leaders of supply chain activities, and we were spinning it this morning, all the horror stories, who shot John and how it's all working. And so, I started, I told that group, because we've got a lot of new members, that I'm one of the oldest dogs in the room. I've been doing this, we didn't even call it supply chain. We didn't barely knew what logistics meant way back when I started. So I came out of school. I was supposed to do the first Whitbread race. It's a sailing race going around the world, and one of my mentors grabbed me and said, you're going to do that, you'll end up as a sailing bum, and you'll never come back to you really should take your degree and make something of it. So he put me in a management training program, and I started to build my knowledge on moving stuff. And at that point, it was just moving stuff around the region. Now we're moving stuff around the globe, and it hasn't been real easy. But as you can see by my moniker in the background, we're celebrating our 20th year in business. So my partner Jim Ward and I started this right before a recession in 2001. And recessions are really a great time to start supply chain businesses, because all people are saying, okay, how can you help me? What can you do? I'm going. So if you recall, that was the .com. Everything kind of unrolled as that started to unwind, and then we had 9/11. So we had two big events in that time period as we are starting this business. And so we've been very fortunate to build it up to be what I think, if you categorize us right now, we're a global supply chain and logistics third-party provider. And we've touched everything in the supply chain. We help technology, we do a lot of consulting, we do a lot of procurement, moving things, and all of those activities that go along with supply chain. And now that it's been elevated, now that it's on the news every night, right, people are starting to get a pretty good understanding of how important these activities are for any business.
Right.
So yeah, so that's a little background.
So again, perfect jumping off point, right? Let's talk about it. It's in the news all the time. So, a couple of minutes on the state of the market, right? I've read my articles. I can understand the visuals that are out there, but there's more to it than that, right? Maybe a little bit less from your perspective on the state of the market and supply chain and what that means and maybe even its impact on, everyday life right now.
Well, what from my perspective, what I've seen, and I think my organization goes along with this too, the pandemic drove a lot of this activity.
Right.
And so the shutdown and the restart, and then some of the money flowing through the global markets to try to get things back going again, it's really we're out of sync, and we've been out of sync for quite some time. So materials, and then with the pandemic still taking its toll on labor, shutting ports down, not enough driving, all those activities, but we've also seen a shift on into the consumer. So what used to drive business was, a car guy would have all the supply stuff coming in to build his cars. And now, and selling it in a traditional market, you come into the showroom and pick out your car, and there it is right there. Now they're coming in build to order. You order them online. You do these things. So consumer has really taken the big shift. Has been in the focus on supply chains right now is servicing that consumer. Mm-hmm. So even manufacturers are turning to a direct sale model. So if you look at office furniture, boy, they got dusted pretty good when there's nobody in the office anymore.
Right.
But now they had to pay. So, oh my gosh, they're at home. How do we build product that service that consumer in his home or in his other work sites and things like that? So there's a big shift in that right now. And that's I don't see that ending anytime soon.
Yeah, that's interesting. That build to order model is definitely something we're keeping an eye on here at Grand Rapids Label. We're in the label space, so we're a printing business, right? But we're heavily here in Western Michigan. We're heavily involved with the automotive marketplace, and reports about the evolution of the dealership location and what that means. Right. Reports about how Ford specifically has put some articles out there and how they're experimenting with this kind of build to order model. And then of course the EV marketplace is pretty heavy on the build to order, right? The Tesla's model, Rivian's model, those types of things that build to order things. So that's super interesting, and definitely has an effect. So, right. So again, a good jumping off point, because you say, okay, you don't see that changing. What do you see, Les, as some key maybe components to supply chain and what that means? Again, for an organization like a Grand Rapids Label, right, where to your point, we're relying on our suppliers to consistently get us quality product in a timely manner that allows us to perform for our end users, compress lead times, manage inventory, all of those types of things, right, that become really critical for us. But then there's all these things that we can't control going on. So, into 2022, into 2023, what should we be thinking about, or what should we be anticipating?
Well, I think there's going to be another big shift, Bill, to your point, and that is this. There's a lot of compression on trade right now. So, right now we're out of sync. So we can't get materials in fast enough, and lead times are longer, and inventories, we're out of inventory. All that'll all eventually start to smooth itself out. But what manufacturers or any distributors, etc., you have to start thinking about servicing your local markets with local supply. So you're going to start seeing shifts where we don't want to give up on our consumer in China, but we're not going to be buying stuff, around the world to service that market. We're going to start to develop local supply bases to serve local markets. and we're, and get that rhythm going. So we're starting to see a lot of shift now. It's very expensive to do. People, they're waiting, and then the labor market too. Where are my people that are going to do this? I can't find people right now to serve me a hamburger. So there's a big compression right there. It's just the labor component, the cost and inflation. You got to, factor that in. Yeah. So as we're seeing these rising costs to support the labor, to support the activity of logistics and all of that, this gets very complicated. So now you're starting to think about, how do I automate some of this stuff where I don't need as much labor? And that's where we're investing heavily. And I know you are too, Bill.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out that labor component. We've got a back office now in Bogota, Colombia, and really? Brilliant workforce, underemployed right now. So they're doing a lot to support our back office operations.
Yeah. So, right. You touched on a couple of things that you're right. We do participate in that automation side of our business, and we're in labels, right? So it's the vision of the Amazon production line that's where we really touch automation. So, but you mentioned something interesting, which is, as we start to forecast and other companies are out there forecasting, you mentioned this kind of settling in, right? Of, some of these conditions that exist right now. Are there like key indices that you're watching, Les, that says, okay, we're seeing some settling down of, I don't even know, Les, like A, B, and C. So, okay, this is a good sign for how maybe lead times can start to come down. Are there key things that you pay attention to that maybe others could be looking at as well?
Well, yeah, there's a lot. So right
there's a
now,
lot, right? Like, great question, Bergie. How much time do we have?
I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But there's indexes and there's different things, and different things are out of whack right now. So okay. We just got off a call with Ford and GM and Chrysler, and they're all working together to get their circuits and right. all the circuit boards in. So they're actually teaming up. They've got freighters now coming out of places in the world. I didn't even know that we're making circuit boards, bringing stuff in so they can get at least some of that automotive stuff back out to market. And that's that shift there where Tesla's a little ahead of the game right there right now. Somehow they've been able to, get that componentry where others have not. So I don't know what their Elon's secret sauce is there, but he's doing something that he's still pushing. Yeah, I mean, they just sold 100,000 cars to Hertz. So we're going to be electrifying the travel business.
Isn't that
how you like to jump into an EV and go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds?
Well, I'm all for it. You and I kind of have some of those things running through our veins, right? I like my cars. We've competed against each other in sailboats, which of course is always a fun thing to do. I saw that they announced maybe even just today an Uber connection for another 50,000 going to Uber drivers, or maybe that was through Hertz. But anyway, okay, so if there is generally a potential settling down, right, over the next
there will be
couple of years, and again, you're thinking, okay, there are other components that come into play there about, helping my business automation, think about your workforce, because that has an effect all the way around. Let's go to the next horizon, right? If I'm really thinking far out as an organization, my definition of far is 5 years. I think you get beyond that, it gets a little too murky. But how does a company like Grand Rapids Label, or again, another company that might be listening to this, how do they think creatively? You use the word on your website, progressively thinking about supply chain management and improvement and so on and so forth. How am I having that conversation, Les, right now, and saying, hey, maybe we got to deal with what we're dealing with here in the next year or two, but in 5 years, boy, we could be better if. Like, what does that conversation look like for a company like ours?
So we're seeing a lot of activity right now. We've been approached by some very interesting players to use supply chain as a service. Just think about that for a minute. Okay. So major distributor, Asian distributor, $21 billion. All right.
Bigger than
so
Grand
they
Rapids
have
label. Yeah.
they have a bigger than many. So they have partners and they have distributors and they have suppliers and they have all of these communities, these trading partners. And what they want is they want to connect all of those partners together in a digital way to really they would be the supply chain activator. I mean, they would be in the center. They would be the epicenter of that whole activity, posting out, all the demand signals, all of the needed communication. All is linked. So there's not EDI. There's not everything's connected. So these connected. That's what's you're going to see a lot of traction in.
Okay.
So right now we've got a bicycle company, a little distributor over in Wisconsin. It's got 12 distributors around the country. He wants to connect, use all our technology. He doesn't want to go out and do it himself. He doesn't want to build it himself. Since we've got a lot of this already connected, he just wants to use it in his business. So we just hook up the pipes and now take a lot of the slosh out of that activity.
So you can visualize that, right? You use the word at the center. So your bicycle company becomes at the center. Your relationship there is looking at maybe dashboards or bits of data that become critical for him for that company to run that much more efficiently. Is that what you're talking about, Les? Is that
part of it?
Is that how that looks, or is there more to it than that? That's a fascinating conversation.
Bill, we took a company that was pieces of two companies. It was, and I probably shouldn't share this right now, but let's just say they're automotive related.
Okay.
And they took one supplier's product and another supplier's product, put it together, a private equity firm put it together, and then they came to us and said, how do we reconnect all these dots to our customers, to our suppliers, to all of our business partners? Wire us up. Now, what we ended up doing is wiring into, they went out and bought NetSuite. So we took all of our platforms and wired it into the financial system. So we have two-way flow of that information, which cuts out all the email traffic, all of the different, if you really look at a transaction, it's accompanied by a lot of data and a lot of people communicating around that data. And we got to simplify this. It is just too much to keep everybody informed. And that communication is so critical to get it right, to keep your inventory levels down and to improve your performance.
So these are my words, but you have me real interested when you say, even your phrase a few minutes ago, getting rid of EDI, right? That sounds very attractive to me. That the connection of those data points, the communication of those data points. So thinking about your business and its ability to streamline and simplify those processes, right? And of course, using technology to do that. Maybe not so much in the traditional sense of EDI comes in from over here and then it hits us there. And then that information fans out across a bunch of other necessary partners and data points and so on and so forth, then ultimately flows back in through a financial system. Like you're saying, we're a NetSuite group, so that's appealing to us, and creates another set of data points. You're talking about continuing to streamline those processes and make it a more cohesive
then think, Bill,
flow.
then you add AI and machine learning into this stuff. And so your analytics start to get real powerful. You're not using the human spreadsheet to try to figure out what's happening. You are now really taking live ammo and really seeing, and you kind of start to control flows and doing different things. And pretty soon the machine's going to be your yes guy.
Yeah.
This is the way we're going to do it.
So there you go, right? For today's purposes, right? Super fun conversation. Lots of things to think about in a very short amount of time here, Les. So that's fantastic. So maybe let's distill that down, kind of in closing here. If I'm Grand Rapids Label, right, we're a nice, growing, generationally successful organization. There are others like Grand Rapids Label and beyond listening to what we're talking about. What are maybe two key things, conversations or questions we or others could be asking themselves to say, hey, we want to get a jump on this, right? We do want to look at supply chain as a differentiator, communication as a differentiator. How do I frame those in a couple of questions that an organization could start asking?
Man, that's another good one too, because everyone is a little different.
Okay.
If this customization of, this thing is not a commodity. This is really looking at the business model and saying where you can put it on steroids. And every business, a lot of times we're different from everybody. We're so complex. Well, that's the one thing you hear. But then again, the way business differentiates themselves can be different. And you've got to model it and take a look at, and then you've got to push that into the model of where can we help those organizations grow and make money, and do it more efficiently than they have been doing.
Our end users, you're asking,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, right. Who's my client, and how do I help them? Right? Yeah.
Exactly, Bill. And I think that's the secret. You've got to start thinking, wrapping your head around that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where success really comes into play.
Yeah, awesome differentiator, right? If you can be that company at the table, not across the table, but on the same side of the table, saying, how do I help you? Let's look at our relationship, and how do I help you do better? Yeah, isn't that the ultimate conversation that you want to have with your partner?
That is exactly correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, gosh, again, amazing amount of information in a short amount of time, Les. I know you're incredibly busy, and congratulations on 20 years, and congratulations for being at the epicenter of what is a wild time, right? And I know you have the ship show that you do every Wednesday to help people, learn and ask questions. I think that's a fantastic thing that you guys do. So the listener, hey, go out, hit Supply Chain Solutions, and you can join those on Wednesdays. I think they're at 1:00 Eastern time. Thank you again for joining us. Gosh, we really appreciate it, and best.
I love this podcast. This is great, Bill. Just keep it up, and let me know how else we can help you support you.
Thank you very, very much, Les, and thanks to all the listeners, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.